Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel, and we'll continue with our 100 days of DevOps. And we've been considering CI/CD in the past couple of days, I think close to about a week now or thereabouts, and we are going to continue in that progression. So yesterday we were able to um, integrate source code management into our pipeline. Remember, we started from building the pipeline using the declarative script where we had to manually go and put our pipeline in the Jenkins job for it to run. Then, after we graduated to using source code management, in the sense that Jenkins now we created a Jenkins file, we pushed it to our GitHub repository, and then we triggered Jenkins to go to the GitHub repository, pull that particular Jenkins file, then run everything that has been declared in that pipeline. So that was what we actually did yesterday. So today I'm going to talk about I want to look into something that is very, very important, and it is what ties everything together. So, what do I want to actually talk about? Before I start, if you're coming across my videos for the first time, we're trying to cover DevOps in 100 days. We started with the foundation, the fundamentals, and we've been taking it one step at a time. We are in the phase three of our journey where we are considering CI/CD, and I've explained everything about CI/CD, explained what CI process does, what CD process does. I've also talked extensively about the tools. We've looked at so many tools. We considered, and out of the numerous CI/CD tools, we picked three we're going to familiarize ourselves with, which I believe are the most common ones, which is Jenkins, GitHub Actions, and Argo CD for GitOps. So we're currently this might be the last video on Jenkins, maybe might be the last video on Jenkins before we talk about um GitHub Actions, because we are just in the CI phase. Remember, there are two phases, CI and then CD. We're just in the CI phase, and then we're using two tools for CI, which is Jenkins and GitHub Actions. Then for the CD phase, we're using Argo CD for it. So this might actually be the last video for Jenkins, and then before we move to GitHub Actions, or if this is not the last, then I will maybe just one more video on Jenkins before we move to GitHub Action. So, like I said, I want to discuss something that ties everything together, and it's very, very important. And it's actually very simple, but it's really powerful. Yes, it's simple to implement, but very, very um powerful. And okay, so when we when we set up our pipeline, for us to build the pipeline, we have to manually go and click on build now for the pipeline to work. But like I said, CI/CD has to do with automations. So, and when we're talking about automation, we want to reduce manual effort as much as possible, right? So how then do we configure it in a way where we don't always have to click on build now for before we can actually get things done? And that is where a tool, or will I call it a tool? It's not really well, I don't know if I should call it a tool or a concept. Well, but whichever you choose to call it, that is where webhooks come into play. So basically, what is a webhook, or what are webhooks? In simple terms, a webhook is actually an event-driven architecture that triggers maybe an event from one system, triggers an action from another system. So that is, let me see. Okay, I think I have it already opened. So from what I have here, it's an HTTP based callback mechanism that enables real-time event-driven communication between applications. So it enables HTTP communication between applications. In this case, we are talking about Jenkins and GitHub. So let me give an illustration for you to understand what it means. So we'll have, let's say this is um our developer. This is our developer's laptop where he's, writing codes and all of that. And then we have, he pushes the code to, he pushes the code to GitHub, right? He pushes the code to from his laptop to GitHub. Let me label this. Let me name it dev, and then let me name this. I can do VCS. That's the version control system in brackets GitHub. So every developer makes changes, either pushes the code to GitHub or makes a pull request. Whatever, either you're pushing directly or you are making a pull request, you are communicating from your laptop to GitHub. So and then Jenkins that there's Jenkins that reads the code. Let's see. Um, so Jenkins. Let me not even just say, yeah, Jenkins. Let me use Jenkins. So looks at your Jenkins basically reads the Jenkins file on your version control system. So what a webhook will do is that instead of us having to go to Jenkins UI and then click on build before Jenkins goes to the repository and looks for changes, we set up a webhook in the sense that once the developer makes a push to the GitHub repository or makes a pull request and it has been merged to the GitHub repository, there's an automatic there's an automatic signal from GitHub to Jenkins, in informing Jenkins that a change has been made in the repository. So Jenkins will constantly be watching. So there's an automatic trigger that is sent to Jenkins that a change has been made to the GitHub repository. And then Jenkins in turn, now uses the Jenkins file to build all the stages in the pipeline. I hope that is clear. The developer pushes the code to to GitHub repository. A webhook trigger is sent to Jenkins, informing Jenkins of a change in the repository. And then Jenkins goes ahead and uses the Jenkins file present in that GitHub repository to build all of this. So now that eliminates the need for us to click on build now. So that is basically what a webhook is. It's like the center of automation for CI/CD when you're talking about Jenkins rather. So you can integrate webhook, you can integrate your webhook with different applications, but in this particular video, we are actually working with just GitHub and Jenkins. So how do we do that? Um, we go to everything is done. The webhook is done on the repository. So we'll go to settings and you have to go to the settings of that particular repository. And under settings, you see webhook. So when you click on webhook, you see webhook allows external services to be notified when certain events happen. So when a certain event happen, we'll send a post request to each of the URLs you provide. Just like I said, once there's a change in the in a GitHub repository, it, a trigger will be sent to whatever application that we have connected GitHub with, telling the application that a change has been made to this repository. Whatever you have been designed to do, you can come and do it because now we have a change. You understand? So, and if you want to go further to read more, you can just open the webbook guide and open the webbook documentation. You can read about webhooks, types of webhooks, and all of that. But I won't be doing that here. I'm just going to be setting it up, and it's really, really easy to set up. So how then do we set up webhooks? So you click on add webhook. Now to set up a webhook on GitHub, you put the payload URL. The payload URL basically is the URL of the Jenkins server. So we have to put the URL of the Jenkins server, and then we have to also provide the content type. It's either you want JSON or you want this other one. We're going to use JSON, and then which event would you like to trigger this webhook? So we want just the push event. That means once there is a push, once somebody pushes to the GitHub repository, we um we the webhook triggers. Yes. So now for the payload URL, our Jenkins is actually on HTTP, and if we put our IP address 192.168.199.136 colon 8080 rather, and then you always end it with slash github underscore webhook. Yes, so this is how your webhook will always look like. You put in the IP address of your Jenkins server, and um you end it with slash github slash webhook. However, there's an issue with this setup. The issue with this setup is that Jenkins is running inside a container that we mapped to um our host port, which is 8081. So this IP address is as good as just changing it to localhost, localhost.8081. Now this will not work because it's still looking like it is an internally managed IP address. So this will not work. And let me just show you, because what happens is that when I click on add webhook, they would send a a ping will be sent to the URL that I've provided here, just to confirm if the URL is working, right? So let me click on add webhook. So I'm just trying to show you. So they said that hook was successfully created. We sent a ping payload to test out. So let's reload. Let's reload. Okay. So I'm supposed to see a check sign here showing that it has connected, but it's not. They said this hook has never been triggered. So let's go into it and see what the issue is. Let's check on recent deliveries. So this was a ping, and if we look into it, we couldn't deliver this payload. That means the webhook was unable to connect to Jenkins because of the URL that we provided. Basically, we are providing it something like localhost, so it will not work with localhost. So if you are doing your own project, you can't use localhost when you're dealing with webhooks. So now there's a way to go around it. We have some different tunneling tools where you can turn your local IP address to a public IP address where external applications can actually connect with it. So we are going to look into that, and one of the tools that you can actually use to get that sorted out is a tool called ngrok. So we have, let me just put it here. So if you've heard of it before, so that's ngrok. So it's like a tunneling tool. It translates or transforms that your local um IP address. It gives it an external IP that um other applications can actually connect with. So how do we install? You have to install ngrok on your VM, and then you expose it. How do we go about that? If we go to our terminal and we do to check if a tool is installed, the command is which, and then the name of the tool. So if I say which Python 3, so it will show me where that executable is. So if you get a response like this, it means that is installed, because this is where the executable file is. So when I do which ngrok, you can see that we're not getting any feedback, which is to show that ngrok is not installed on our virtual machine. So how then do we go and install ngrok? So let's just go to Google and type ngrok. So when we click on it, okay, the first one, ngrok.com. So you click on the first website and then you log in. So I've signed up on ngrok before, so that's why I'm logging in. But if you have not, then you have to sign up. It's easy. You can use your Gmail account to sign up. You can use your GitHub, just connect it, and then you're good to go. So the first thing is we want to install ngrok on our virtual machine. So how do we go that? So this is for Windows. So if you're using a Windows virtual machine, this is how you can install ngrok. But I'm going to choose Linux because my virtual machine is a Linux virtual machine. So and I'm going to use the apt because of course I'm using Ubuntu. So I'm just going to copy this. I'll copy this and I'll paste it. Get my password. So ngrok always has a token, an authentication token, which you use to authenticate. Couldn't resolve host ngrok. This. Okay. So what is the issue? I think it's not connecting to the host. Okay, let me see if there are other ways. I mean, they should. Yeah. Snap is Snap installed. If this is not going to work, you can use Snap. Okay, I don't think this is going to work. Let me see. Let me be sure that the issue is not from my end. Let me see. Can I ping? Let me be sure that the issue is not from my end. Okay, so I'm guessing the issue is from my end. Let me see if I can ping this host unreachable. Okay, let me see. I can ping my gateway. Okay, I can ping my gateway, but the host is not reachable. Okay, so the connection issue is actually from my end. So what I'm going to do now is that I'm going to I'll be restarting my VM right now. So because it's been, on for a while and then there has been power outages on my laptop. So I want to believe that has affected the network. So I'll restart my VM. I'll pause the video now and then when I'm done restarting the VM, we'll confirm if we can now ping. And then once that is sorted out, we'll continue with the video. So I'll be pausing the video now. So I've been able to resolve the issue with the network. So apparently, I didn't shut down my VM before hibernating my laptop, and then that caused um an issue with the network, and Eventually, I had to do like some restoration settings, and it changed the IP address. So I'm going to be doing a lot of changes. So, but let's proceed. Um, let's proceed. So we'll copy this again and we paste. So this time around, I'm expecting it to work. Okay. So you can see now that everything is going fine. Okay, so we are finished setting up the ngrok. So what do we do next? What we do next is we authenticate. So you always use for once you log in or once you sign up to ngrok, you have your authentication token, which you can find here. So it's here. You can just copy it and all of that. So you show it, and then you can copy it and do whatever you want to do. What you need to do is that you need to, after you've installed the agent in your VM, so you just copy this. This is what you use to authenticate, right? So I'm going to copy this and I'll paste it here. I'll paste it here. So I've authenticated. So after that, this is the command you use to expose your application on your VM to external applications. So ngrok HTTP and then the port number. So I'll press this port instead of 80, since we're trying to expose port 8081. So we'll do 8081. So when I hit enter, it would give me another IP address, which would also be pointing to our Jenkins container. Then we can now use that to initiate a webhook. So it's connecting. Okay, so you can see this is the URL that is given to us, and you can see that it is pointing to localhost to port 8081, which is equivalent to my VM IP and 8081. So if I copy this URL and I come to my browser and I paste it, it will also be pointing me to my Jenkins VM. So let's see. So visit site. Okay, so let me close this. So you can already see from this place that it's showing sign in to Jenkins. So it's pointing to my Jenkins VM. So it's either okay. So just to show you that it's actually the same container, I would log in and you'll see that it's the same thing. This is the this is the original one that has this IP address, right? If you check here, you can see the IP address. And if I come also to this one, you'll see that it's the same thing. So you can see that it's basically the same thing. The pipeline is the same thing. Everything's the same thing. So now, but the difference is that the this is actually like a local. It's local to my laptop or to my computer, while this can be accessed external. So this is the URL that we're going to use for our GitHub webhook. So there's the GitHub. Go to GitHub. Okay, so okay, logger up. Now go to our settings where we saw webhooks, and this particular one will edit it now. So I won't delete it. I will just edit it. I will change the URL to this. This was given to us, and I will just update it to update webhook. So the hook was successfully updated. So let me refresh and see if it connected this time around. Okay, let's check recent deliveries. Is this recent? No, this is not recent. This is the one that was sent earlier. Okay, let's check. Let's wait if it will deliver. You know what? So that we don't have anything. Let me delete this altogether. Let me delete this altogether. And then I'll just add webhook and then github webhook. And I want application.json. I want it on just a push event and click on add webhook. Okay, webhook has been successfully added and a ping has been sent. Let me reload. So you can see now that it is showing a check mark. It is showing that last delivery was successful. So it has been what it does is that it sends a ping and then it tries to confirm that the URL you provided is actually a legit URL. So you can see also here that um a ping was sent and the response code is 200, which means a successful delivery. So that is how you configure webhook on GitHub. So this is the only thing you need to do. You set up your ngrok on your virtual machine. You map the port 8080 of your container to the one that ngrok will give you, and then you use that IP address. So to do that, no, in an ideal environment, like in an ideal environment, you would be setting up Jenkins on its own virtual machine, right? So you wouldn't have to use ngrok to do IP tunneling or anything. So you just make sure that the IP of the virtual machine can actually communicate like it's an external virtual machine, not a local virtual machine. So you just put the IP instead of ngrok. But because of the way we have done this setup, we are using Jenkins as a container, not a virtual machine, right? So we have to use ngrok to, tunnel the IP inside the container to, external usage. So now that our webhook is properly set up, let's now see it in action. So I'll go to my code. I'm going to make some edits. Now, while trying to resolve this network issue, I made mention that the IP address has changed. So I will be editing the source code. So I'll change the IP address from the previous one to this new one, and then we'll push the changes to our GitHub repository. So I can't actually stop this. You can see a post was sent, and then all of this. So a new I'm going to open a new tab while this is still running. And I'll do, okay, valid. Let me just duplicate tab. Okay, so Let me be sure that, okay. Let me check. I think it's the front end. Vim index.html. So now what I'm actually doing is wrong. There's an issue because in your source code you don't want to hard code an IP address. You don't want to hard code an IP address. I can just change this to localhost the 500. So you wouldn't want to hard code an IP address because of situations like this. If it was a case where I put maybe like localhost and then port 50, port 5,000 rather, I wouldn't need to, be going to the source code to make an edit. So for best practice, do not hard code IP address in your source code. That is just one of the lessons that we have learned from what has just happened today. So, but well, it's a teachable moment. So it's a learning process, not just for me, but for everyone that is watching this video. I think that is the only place that we have an IP address. Yeah, so I just changed the last one from 136 to 128, which is the new IP address that was given to me by DHCP. So I made edits to this. Let me see if there's anything I need to edit in the back end. I doubt. I doubt. Um, I doubt because I'm not sure I have. Let me see. Okay. Okay. So I don't have any IP address that needs to be changed in my backend code. So let's. So good. I've made changes to the front end index.html. So I'm going to push this to my GitHub repository. We'll confirm that the change is already in my GitHub repository, and then we'll confirm that the webhook has been triggered, and then we'll go to Jenkins and see that it will automatically build. So let me do git add git commit edited index.html IP. So I'm not going to push yet. Before I push, I just want to make sure that we are exactly. So the last build was 20. So when I push in a couple of seconds, I'm supposed to see build number 21. I'm supposed to see build number 21 automatically triggered. I wouldn't need to click build now before it happens. So I'm supposed to see build number 21 automatically triggered. So I'll go to my um so let me push now. Before that, let me get my notepad because I know I'll be asked for the token. So let me copy this and go here. So let me do git push. So I put my name and I put the personal access token I've just copied. Okay, good. So let's watch the magic happen now. So let me refresh this. So we can see that there was a push now 1 minute ago. And then let's go to our webhook and see if the webhook was triggered. So go to the webhook, we click on it. Last delivery was successful. Let's click on it. We're supposed to have two now instead of one. So we now have two deliveries, which is the push, right? And then if you click on it, we have a 200 response. So let's go to our Jenkins. We're supposed to see build number 21 coming up anytime from now. Awesome. So you can see now that build number 21 came up by itself without me having to click on build now. So we click on it, and then it will run it will run the pipeline and perform all the stages. So this is how webhook automates everything. So basically, you don't have to, do any manual pushes. You don't have to click on build now. Let's say manual pushes. No, you don't have to do any manual setups, right? So you don't have to like click on build now for it to build. Once immediately I pushed to my GitHub repository, the GitHub webhook triggered it, and then Jenkins picked it from there and started, you know, doing what is in the Jenkins pipeline, right? So if I come to my VM, you can see that there's even a new um so you can see that there are even new requests or new things or new logs as the case may be on ngrok, which means ngrok is serving to Jenkins, right? So that is that about this. So this is taking a while. I think it's just network, but I believe we've been able to, see in practice or in practical how we can use webhook. So basically, the process is simple. You set up your ngrok. Since we're using Jenkins as a container, set up your ngrok. You map your ngrok to port 8081, which is the Jenkins container. You use the IP given to you, or the URL given to you rather, as your URL, and then you push. So once you push, everything triggers automatically without you even doing anything or even clicking build now or stuff. So obviously we've done this, over and over again, and it's going to run successfully. So we've come to the end of this video. I'll see you again in the next video. Until then, enjoy the rest of your day. Cheers.